Hey podcast listeners, it's TJ from PixarPost.com. In episode 42 of the Pixar Post podcast, this is going to be 100% dedicated to the upcoming release of Disney Infinity 3.0. And to give you all of the best news, we invited Will Kelly from DisneyInfinity.tv, who is an expert in the realm of Disney Infinity and has a weekly podcast and live stream show that gives tips, tricks, and other information regarding Disney Infinity. So in this, we're going to look at everything from the starter packs to the playsets to the characters so that you can have a good sense of everything you should know leading into launch day this upcoming Sunday, August 30th, and give you any tips that you might have if you're looking to do any last-minute pre-orders as well. So we certainly hope you enjoy this special episode looking at Disney Infinity 3.0, and now we'll kick right into the interview with Will Kelly. All right, well, thanks for joining us, Will. I'm super excited to talk to you about Disney Infinity 3.0. Being the expert that you are, I'm excited to get your opinions and your take on it. So, first off, just let people know a little bit about yourself and your site.
Okay. Well, TJ, I'm so happy to be on the show again. This is kind of turning into a tradition of ours. The first time we met was on a Disney Infinity kind of briefing, and I love it because like each year, if not sooner, I have this conversation to look forward to with you.
Absolutely, yeah. So it's a good thing because we want to make sure that we bring in for our podcast the proper people that are going to get people ready for the game launch. So whether you're going to go buy it on Sunday, you can find out what you need to know, or if you're going to pre-order it, and you're going to try to get there before the game releases, you'll have some more insight too. So, sorry to interrupt. Go ahead and talk about your Disney Infinity TV site a little bit.
No worries. So yeah, with a team, we run a Disney Infinity focused website, podcast, YouTube channel primarily. And so we do a weekly podcast about all things Disney Infinity. It's generally a news show. We've had you and Julie on the show a couple times, and we basically just talk all things Disney Infinity, let people know the news, the rumors, stuff we're going to discuss on this episode, and that's release information, and so pretty much anything. And for those interested, you could find that at DisneyInfinity.tv. You can just search for us on iTunes or YouTube.com/DisneyInfinityTV. So we do lots of content, but that podcast is kind of our most consistent piece of content that we produce.
Absolutely, yeah. And you guys have such an awesome cast of characters, if you will, that are on the show with you. I mean, it's a Julie obviously has talked about it, and we've talked about it when we were on your show. Julie loves Jason's Australian accent, and you've got crazy characters like Pirate Steven and Steve Krellin and all these other folks that come along. I mean, it's a fun group, and definitely, if you haven't heard of it from our site before or seen when we were on the episode before on your folks' show, definitely check them out. It's a lot of fun, and if you're into Disney Infinity, you can't get a better source of information about what's coming up for the game.
Well, thank you for that. That's awfully nice.
Yeah, absolutely. So Disney Infinity 3.0 is upon us. It comes out on Sunday, August 30th. It's going to be available on Xbox One, Xbox 360, PlayStation 3, PlayStation 4, Wii U, and then the addition of, as you'd expect, iOS, Android, and PC. But that'll lead me right to my first question right off the bat, which we know that the console versions are coming out, but do you have any information as far as the PC, iOS, or Android? Because those came out so much later on Disney Infinity 2.
Yeah, I did catch wind this week, actually, that they are supposed to be released at the same time. My personal opinion on that, though, is I highly doubt it. I don't expect the release of the digital. When I say digital, I'm referring more so to PC and then those tablet/phone versions. I expect those to be delayed. I don't expect it to be nearly as delayed as last time, though. I would expect maybe around a month and a half or so. But I heard insider info this week saying that the plan is to launch it at the same time, but that's as concrete as that info got.
Yep,
so.
Yep, and no, that's fair. I was just I'm excited to hear that it would be sooner rather than later. Because, I mean, boy, way late in the game, they did like the PS Vita version and all those others for Disney Infinity too. So it's great that they're going to be upfront a little more.
Well, and for something that might be of interest to your audience, one thing I really think that those versions of the game is going to help with is there's a new mode that's kind of a more casual mode in the game, and it's kind of Farmville on steroids. That's actually a compliment. But what I've seen of this, it seems like it's going to be very almost made for the mobile versions of the game, and I expect those versions to be full featured. But of the information I've seen of this farming mode, the only thing that went through my mind was, oh, it'd be so cool if I could jump on lunch break and just farm my things so I could feed my sidekicks.
That's great. I never even thought about that. That's a perfect tie-in to the mobile application. That's great.
Yeah, it's exciting. It's a new feature that's pretty interesting.
So is there one other, before we start breaking down the play sets and the characters and all those kind of things, for people that may have played 1.0, 2.0 and are getting excited for this, you have played 3.0. Is there a feature of it or a portion of it that after you started playing it, you're like, wow, this is a great improvement, or something that you're really looking forward to exploring more in 3.0?
You know, there are two things I'm really excited about. One of which was a surprise, and that's actually this farming mode. It is something that, for the type of gamer I am, it was not something that initially interested me, but after seeing some firsthand impressions of it, I personally haven't played it yet, but seeing some people that are close to the game and hearing their thoughts, that's something that's really exciting to me, because the game itself is not only about gameplay and creating games and going through these story experiences, but a huge component of it obviously is the collection aspect of it. And there's so many methods of collecting in the game, but there's so much to do in the game. A lot of times those areas are lost. An example of that is the inclusion of sidekicks last year, which has some amazingly awesome characters like Up characters, Gravity Falls, traditional classic Disney, other Pixar properties. And those are things that unless you really had a use for them, they weren't, you never touched them. This farming is going to give those characters usefulness. And so if you want Carl to not have his cane, but he has an Agrabah wand, wearing a Donald hat, I mean, you could totally get meta and make your favorite characters have this kind of mishmash of other Disney or Pixar
that's
things.
really exciting. That is a fun thing to be able to mix it, because that's the whole purpose of Disney. Well, not the whole purpose, but one of the fun things about Disney Infinity is that you can cross-pollinate all of those different genres, and whether it be Disney, Pixar, Marvel, or now Star Wars and all those kind of things. That's a really exciting feature.
Yeah. And then something that interests me and probably would even interest you is the toy box this time is, even for me, I do a weekly podcast, but the toy box is this area where you can build your own worlds and essentially build your own games within the game. But it's, even in 2.0, it was improved, but it was still pretty complicated. The tools they give you this time around are a lot more user-friendly, and so just going in there and building is not nearly as intimidating. And that kind of goes on with another piece I'm really excited about, is there's something called a Toy Box Hub now that it does a really good job of teaching you the game and the ins and outs, everything from the unlocked toys to the farming mode to the building to even the combat of the game or platforming, and kind of those two combinations, something I think is going to be very beneficial to new gamers to the franchise and old gamers alike, because it's just going to open up the door on ease of use for people.
Yeah, without a doubt, because as you started talking about it, I was thinking, as much as I've been playing this since 1.0's release, and quite a bit, to the point where I have, like, on the first one, the strategy guide out, and I was checking off each capsule, the green and red capsules that I collected. Like, it's actually a really fun thing to think about, kind of digging in and getting those little hubs and getting some of that information, because frankly, on the toy box side of it, outside of downloading some of the toy boxes and playing them, I never really got into the creation of it because I didn't have the time to invest in learning it. So the fact that, you're saying that the tools are a little more robust and they're providing some more education behind it as far as in an interactive way, at least if I'm hearing that correctly, it sounds fantastic, and I'm extremely excited for that then.
That's exactly it. One other item that you're probably pretty excited about too is the inclusion of the El Capitan Theater.
Of course.
How awesome is that? For any kind of Disney or Pixar fan, that is a really cool addition.
I know, just the historic nature of it and all the fun things that you're going to be able to do with it for sure. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Wow. Okay. So this is... All right, so we've heard some of the information here. We know when it's coming out. I was kind of surprised to hear that it went back to a Sunday release, because wasn't 1.0 a Sunday release?
It was, yeah.
So any thoughts as far as why it jumped back to a Sunday?
No.
Yeah, and that's fair. That's fair.
Yeah, I think because of the type of game it is, and it being a game that's kids and family focused, it makes a lot of sense releasing on a Sunday and not on the traditional media release day of Tuesdays. I think part of the reason also is that it doesn't have to compete with other video game releases on those same days or on Tuesdays. Fall is the busiest time of the video game release season, and right as this game comes out, the end of August, early September is kind of the start of that season. So it's probably just to give the game a little bit more of a breathing room as well.
That's fantastic. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense too. So you can't say no, you don't have a reason, because you just came up with a great reason. So, and then what about internationally? Is it going to be similar dates? Is Jason going to be playing this on proper time as well?
So in the UK, it is being released actually the Friday before. What is that? The 28th, I believe, as I pull up my calendar here.
That sounds right.
Okay, so yeah, Friday the 28th for the UK, and then the following, I believe, for Australia, it's Saturday the 5th, I think.
Okay.
So slightly different, so a little bit before and a little bit after. But yeah, it's only a week apart at max. So.
That's good, because obviously if I think about, and what our listeners are used to is broad changes in release dates. Like, for instance, Inside Out is still coming out in some countries.
That's crazy.
I know.
Like theater runs, right?
Yeah. Theater runs. Yeah, fresh theater runs. It was just hitting the Philippines and a couple other regions. It's crazy. So it's good that the game launches are a little more tighter then. Mm-hmm. So, okay, and then what can we expect at launch? So let's talk through some of the starter packs and ways that people can jump into the game. So there's going to be, much like if you played 1.0 or 2.0, there's going to be a standard, and I don't want to call it standard because it makes it sound less, it's a standard one, but standard starter pack, which is going to come with the Star Wars Twilight of the Republic playset, and which will include the figures of Anakin Skywalker, Ahsoka Tano, with the web code card, of course. And from here on out, I won't mention the web code cards just because they're going to be included with any playset and any figure. And then it includes the base station as well. But for people that have the base station for 1.0 and 2.0, you don't necessarily have to buy that starter pack again. Is that correct?
Yes and no. So for the Wii or the PS3 version, the 1.0 base works all the way up to 3.0. So for those, if you played 1.0 and you skipped 2.0 and now you want to jump on, then those bases will work. The only platform that will not work on is the Xbox. So the Xbox 360 base will only work for the Xbox 360, and the One base will work for the One. So as long as you bought 2.0 on the Xbox One last year, then that base will work for 3.0.
Okay, so basically just assuming that, to be safe, that if you're following the same system that you had and you bought it for 2.0, you should be safe. Yep. That you potentially wouldn't have to get the starter pack, and you could go straight to buying the Twilight of the Republic playset.
Correct.
Okay. Yep.
Yep.
And then so as far as the game disc, how does that work then? Like, so you're not physically getting a game disc if you don't get the starter pack.
Yeah, so this year they're doing it slightly different. There is a digital only version of the game which clocks in at $30. And the way that works is it essentially gives you access to anything that isn't the playset. So any of your 1.0, 2.0, or 3.0 figures will work with that digital version. And then any playset that you purchase, and all playsets this time around are going to be independently available as well. So the starter pack you just mentioned, Twilight of the Republic, will be available in just a playset pack as well that you could then purchase separately, so you could use that with your digital version.
Fantastic. And I should take one step back too and just mention that if in case anybody wasn't aware that obviously 1.0 was Disney themed, 2.0 was Marvel themed, and although this one is themed after Star Wars, there is a presence for Inside Out, which we'll get to as well. And then there's going to be a lot more Disney originals like you had in 2.0 as well. So that's the standard starter pack. We know that there's this digital download as well. There's also a exclusive PlayStation 3 or PlayStation 4 starter pack as well. Can you give any more info on that?
Yeah, so the standard starter pack is going to clock in at about $65. So that's $10 cheaper than what it was last year. There is this additional starter pack, which is kind of this year's version of a collector's edition, and it's called the Star Wars Saga, a Saga bundle. And that's going to give you a few special things. That's $114. It includes the base, the disc, the Twilight of the Republic playset, and then it will give you two other items that are an early release. You are also going to get the Rise Against the Empire playset, which includes Han Solo and Princess Leia. And that playset, which focuses on episodes 4 through 6. And that's a month early release. And so if you want that playset at launch, that's the only way to get that. Otherwise, you have to wait until September 29th.
Okay.
Then the other piece that they're throwing on that's an early release, and that is the Boba Fett figure, which actually doesn't have a release date yet. It's just we just know it's coming this fall.
Oh, okay.
Or, excuse me, it's coming sometime in 2016.
Oh, interesting. I thought that one was. I just had assumed that one would also chime in when the September 29th release for Rise Against the Empire came in.
Yeah, it's just last year. It's kind of like the Hulk that was included in the collector's edition.
Yep.
It's just that little bit extra to entice people to get that version of the game.
Well, and they know how much people love Boba Fett, so they're going to throw that in there. Yeah, absolutely. And he's not a main character, but he's one that's extremely sought after.
Yep. And that's actually a great point. Something that is different in this version of the game compared to any previous version. Any Star Wars character you have, whether it works with canon or not, will work in all of the Star Wars play sets. So you could have Darth Vader fighting against Anakin, or you could have Darth Vader fighting against Darth Vader. Any Star Wars character will work in any Star Wars play set.
And that's a fantastic addition, because across the three, because there's going to be a total of 3 Star Wars themed playsets, correct? Yeah, so that was something that when I heard that, I was extremely excited for that, because you've got this giant world of Star Wars. Why limit it to just each individual playset? That's really exciting, and that seems like a big win for this version.
Definitely, because that's something that was kind of restrictive in the previous version. So it just creates more value, in my opinion, on all the characters that you've invested in or plan to invest in.
Yeah, absolutely, because I did feel kind of locked in on some of the playsets, because obviously they had in 2.0, for people that are familiar with that one, in the Marvel playsets, they had where you had to, certain characters, you could collect the crossover coins, and then that would allow that character to enter that world.
Yep.
How is that going to work actually in this? Is there still a crossover coin, or how do those characters get activated? Do you just put them on and that's all you need to do?
Yep, you just put them on. Some mechanics in the game require certain actions. So say you want to bust through a door, you need a force-powered character for that. There's alternate ways of getting through that same door where you hack it if you don't have a force powers. So yeah, it's pretty open this time. You just drop it and you're good to go.
That's fantastic because it drove me bonkers trying to find some of those crossover coins. Because I'm
Yep.
like, dang it, I want Rocket in this playset right now.
Yeah. Well, and that's actually a great segue. There's one other playset. Well, there's a few other playsets we haven't discussed, but there is going to be a new Marvel playset this this version coming out in the spring, and that's called Marvel Battlegrounds. And it also has that additional feature where any of your Marvel characters, even if you have them from 2.0 edition of the game, will be playable in that playset as well. So
Okay,
they're learning from their mistakes.
I
It
did
sounds
not
like.
know that, and that is awesome. You can use the 2.0 figures in there?
Yep, yep. So
Oh,
if Cap is my favorite Marvel character from 2.0, I'm so excited that he's going to be just as useful for me in this new playset.
well, and that's good because, frankly, a lot of it is, once you've leveled your character up, you were waiting to just use them in the toy box in the new version. Like, for instance, like I wasn't really using Mr. Incredible all that much, but I loved using him in 1.0. So the fact that you can still have your leveled up Cap in the new 3.0 playset when that comes out in the spring is fantastic.
Yep, absolutely.
That is a great addition. I'm definitely excited. I mean, I was excited when I heard 2.0, but some of the delays and the exclusions of having to wait strictly for anything Pixar or Disney for the for that second release was kind of a letdown.
Yeah.
No offense.
No, I agree completely with
From
you.
certainly from my perspective and from my audience's perspective, they were jonesing to get some more Disney and Pixar in there. Even though there are plenty of Marvel fans, and I really enjoyed playing on the Marvel playsets as well. That's going to be a great addition, and I'm really liking a lot of the new additions I'm hearing that they threw into this.
Yep.
So before we get to some of the other playsets too, there was one additional way, or I guess it's not even really a starter pack, but it was announced at the D23 Expo, which is the Star Wars edition PlayStation 4 that comes with the console as well as the game.
Yeah. This was surprised a lot of people. This is a special edition console, something that is a pretty frequent thing to do these days. It has a really kind of cool picture of Darth Vader on the side. And there's two versions of that console, one of which is a Disney Infinity focused version, and it includes, oh gosh, I believe the Saga.
It's
Or is
the
it?
Rise Against the Empire.
Okay, okay.
At least that's what I had seen when I was quick looking at it. But I'll take your word for it either way.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. And the unfortunate part about that also, though, is that the console itself doesn't actually come out until November, I believe. So,
Oh, okay. So you're not getting Rise Against. I thought you were going to be getting Rise Against the Empire early if you went with that playset. I mean, with that package.
it's just the console itself isn't being released until then. So I don't think the package will even be available.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah, so that's the reason, but behind that delay.
Okay. Yeah, that kind of came out of nowhere. I was watching, for people listening, Will and the Disney Infinity team were off at not only the Toy Box Summit, which we'll talk about in a little bit, but also the D23 Expo, and you guys were at that Disney Interactive panel, and I was watching your guys' live stream. If you guys don't follow them on Periscope and or Twitch, be sure to do that. But yeah, they were streaming live from that event, and when that came up, it definitely was a shock because it's like, wow, this is a late announcement, and it seems like it's like, okay, PS4. From my perspective, I'm like, it's been out a while, especially when they said that that's not a 3.0, it's not a PS3 one either. That's just you can get the exclusive starter pack with the PlayStation 3 or 4. Okay, yeah, that one kind of threw me though.
Yep, me too. It was a big surprise. So, but it's a good thing for anyone who is a fan of the game because Disney Infinity has a really close relationship with Sony, so much so that in Sony's biggest press conferences throughout the year, Disney Infinity over the last couple of years has had an onstage presence, and so that's a really good thing for fans of the game having that backing from them.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so we mentioned some of the play sets themselves. Let's give people a little bit of a sampling as far as what they can expect from the play sets. So from Twilight of the Republic, Have you played all of the play sets, or which, or not all? Because I know, like, for instance, what's the one that they just announced?
The Force Awakens one?
Yeah, The Force Awakens. I'm
Yeah.
assuming you haven't played that.
I haven't, no.
Yeah. So yeah,
Actually,
which ones have you gotten your hands on?
so I have very briefly. So this year, unlike last year, I've tried to cover the game only as much as I had to,
Okay.
because last year the magic was a little bit gone by the time I had the game in hand, and Disney themselves actually did a great job of filling people in this year. So in some respects, I've been able to just sit back as a fan and wait for it. That being said, though, I have touched a little bit of on two of the Star Wars playsets. And we're going to get to it, I think. But my favorite, or my most anticipated playset is the Inside Out one. And so I've watched gameplay from that one, but I've intentionally have kept my hands off of it just so I can really relish in it with the release of the
All
game.
right. Well, this is going to be exciting. So, just a little bit of background on the Inside Out playset. It says your mission, like the tagline, your mission begins when Riley watches a scary movie before falling asleep, which sends her subconscious into chaos. Riley's memories are scattered all over Imagination Land, and it's up to you to help her emotions return to headquarters before Riley awakens. To get the job done, you'll need the unique skills and abilities of each of the emotions. So what was it about it when you saw this one that kind of captured you?
So the thing that I love and I'm so excited about this playset is that if you look at the previous versions of the game, 1 and 2, there has been different elements with the playsets, but for the most part, the actions, the mechanics of the playsets have been more or less the same. It's been kind of this third person view, heavy combat focused, kind of action beat 'em ups.
Yep.
Disney Interactive has done something different, and they've kind of stepped outside of that mold for the Inside Out playset. And I think that it's exciting for a few reasons. One of which is that they recognize how interesting and important Inside Out is, and instead of kind of shoehorning that a story in that world into the gameplay of what we've traditionally seen,
Which wouldn't have worked.
exactly. They've gone and done something different, and that is releasing a playset that is kind of a 2.5D platformer. And so a platformer, for those that don't know, think of the original Super Mario Brothers. It's on this 2D plane, and there's lots of time jumping and enemies that you're trying not to get hit by, but not so much combat.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. And so it's 2.5D because there are times when maybe the camera switches from this kind of side-scrolling plane, but you're still locked into a certain plane. And I'm thinking more third person. It's almost like a rail action where what I'm thinking of specifically is there's a scene that I've seen with Anger, and you're jumping on these clouds that disappear out from under your feet, but the perspective has changed slightly to over his shoulder instead of a profile perspective.
Oh, okay, that's awesome. Yeah, and I'm a sucker for anything 2D scroller because get me in front of Mario any day and I just soar. I there's something about the simplicity of it that the game doesn't get in your way, and you can just have some fun with it.
Absolutely.
So it sounds like this is kind of along the same lines, but with a fun little twist.
Definitely. And you mentioned it in the description. Another thing I'm really excited about this playset in particular is that they're doing something else different, and they're really kind of showing you the value of buying additional figures, because each character in the game, or each in that playset, has their own special ability. Unfortunately, I'm not experienced enough with it to actually describe those, but there's going to be a scenario where maybe you have to use Anger's hot-headedness to get through a section, or
Yeah, I had read some of those kind of things. I'm really excited to see, like, for instance, I think I had read that, like you mentioned the clouds, that Sadness can actually suspend herself in the clouds without them dissipating.
Yeah.
And Anger can run across hot ground without it affecting him, where some of the other characters might be losing power. or those types of things. So yeah, I'm really excited that they did this too. Is this going to? Do you know if that's going to translate across all of the play sets? Is that something that was more specific to the Inside Out one, or can I expect some of the other Star Wars characters to have more unique features this time around?
So depending on how you look at either fortunately or unfortunately, this is mostly an Inside Out specific thing. I think the biggest reason for that is because it is the only one of the play sets that has a kind of a different gameplay mechanic.
Got it.
And so I mentioned earlier, there's going to be areas of the Star Wars playsets that you may be required to have a Force character to open doors or blast through barriers, but there's going to be alternate ways of getting around that. So no, it's pretty much just in the Inside Out playset.
Okay, well, hey, I'll take it as it's an exclusive to Pixar.
There you go. And for those that are listening, you might be concerned that does that mean that you are required to purchase every Inside Out place or Inside Out figure to progress through the playset? It's kind of fun. The answer to that is no. There's going to be these kind of temporary areas where if you don't have those characters, you can temporarily play as those characters to get through those sections of the game.
I did not know that.
Yeah. So I think you're definitely going to be enticed to play as those characters, but you're not going to be handicapped if you do not have those characters. You're still going to be able to get through the levels.
Well, anybody that's listening to this podcast is going to want all 5 of the emotions.
Absolutely, absolutely. I also think it's a great way to kind of advertise those characters for people or kids that may not have all the characters at launch. You see that anger can run through lava. That's going to be exciting and give you a reason to go out and get it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, absolutely. It ties it in a little more there. So, well, and speaking of the characters, let's talk about some of the characters that are going to be available at launch. So obviously, alongside the Inside Out playset, we were happy to see that all 5 of the emotions are going to be available right off the bat. And in the starter pack comes joy and anger, correct?
Correct. Yep.
Okay, so joy and anger, and then outside of that, obviously, fear, disgust, and sadness. But we had mentioned this on a previous episode too. But fear is going to be a timed Amazon exclusive. Mm-hmm. Do you have any insight as far as whether it be just from historical, how long those timed releases are before they get put out to the mass retailers as well? How long that's going to kind of before it expires?
The good news is it's not long. It's the same as the Rise Against the Empire. So it is September 29th. So pretty much a month.
Oh, and that's awesome. Is that going to be across the board for some of the other exclusives? Like, we'll talk about coming up here, like Mulan is a Best Buy exclusive.
As far as I know, the only one that doesn't adhere to that is Boba Fett.
Okay. All right, this is fantastic. Yeah. So to give a idea as far as some of the characters that are going to be at release, which is pretty crazy that there's going to be this many just hitting the stores all at once. So in addition to the 2 play sets at launch, being Star Wars Twilight of the Republic and Pixar's Inside Out, of course, the characters that are going to be released are Anakin Skywalker, Ahsoka Tano, Obi-Wan Kenobi, Yoda, and then you start getting into the Disney originals of Olaf, Mickey Mouse, Minnie Mouse, Sam Flynn, and Korra from Tron. And then you get into the Inside Out folks of joy, anger, sadness, disgust, and fear. Fear being the only exclusive among the bunch that I had listed previously. The other exclusives, again, a Disney original of Mulan is going to be a Best Buy exclusive. You had mentioned the Boba Fett, that he's going to be in that Star Wars saga bundle and a broad release still to come. Luke Skywalker and Princess Leia, we talked about, are also going to be part of that Star Wars saga bundle. You have Ezra Bridger, if I'm saying that correctly. I'm going to probably just go crazy on a lot of these. These 4 next characters are part of the Star Wars Rebels line. And Ezra Bridger is part of it's going to be a Toys R Us exclusive. Kanan Jarrus is going to be a Walmart exclusive. Sabine Wren is a Target exclusive. And Zeb Orelios, I don't know, is a GameStop exclusive. Am I missing anybody that you can think of off the top of your head that's going to be out at launch?
That's it at launch, and so those exclusivity windows are just for those retailers. So like you said, they're all available at launch, but they're just going to be available at those specific retailers for that first month, and then they're going to be widely available at all retailers.
I don't know. Am I crazy, or does that seem like it's more characters at launch than last time?
I haven't done the math, but I agree with you. It seems like we're actually getting a lot more figures this time around, and not only throughout the life cycle of 3.0, but also at launch. So it's like quite a bit of characters.
I know it's boy, you could really plop down some money right off the bat. And plus, I bet a lot of people on Sunday are going to be doing a lot of driving.
Right. Yep. That's the bad thing about those retailer exclusives. So, but here's a little pro tip for anyone that is not having to have everything on day one. Absolutely hold off on and just get the characters that you absolutely want at first, because there always are going to be Infinity sales. We're not too far away from Black Friday, and traditionally we've had quite a few good Disney Infinity sales for Black Friday. So yeah. Just wanted to
that is a good tip, because especially on 1.0's release, I got a little crazy. And I remember Julie and I are in Toys R Us, and I'm loading up the cart, and she's like, well, it's on sale. You might as well get it now. And
Right.
then, oh, well, you might as well get that one now. And it's, oh, two for, okay, we'll get, oh, yeah, we went
How
nuts.
could you say no?
Exactly. So yeah, that's a good tip, especially thinking about Black Friday deals and all of the holiday sales that come along with that.
Yep.
Okay, so that's the characters that we have at launch, which there were 13 broad releases, 6 exclusives, and 3 that are part of that early release Star Wars Saga bundle. Outside of that, I'll kind of just run down some other ones. On September 29th, we also had heard that Rise Against the Empire playset's going to be coming out. But then we've also got Chewbacca, Darth Vader, and Han Solo that are going to be coming out then. At least if I'm correct. Please feel free to jump in if I'm incorrect in any of my initial findings.
You are doing good.
Okay, great. And then November 3rd is going to be Darth Maul, Hulkbuster, Ultron, and then Spot, who is actually jumping in the mix from The Good Dinosaur. Mm-hmm. Now that one completely surprised me, and that was also a D23 announcement. A D23 Expo announcement, I should say.
Yeah. This not only is the figure available, that's the only announced figure from The Good Dinosaur, but also something we haven't really discussed in this episode is the Power Disc, and there's going to be four Power Disc of The Good Dinosaur released as well.
Okay, so that's a good thing to mention too. So the Power Discs, we have talked about it on the show before, but they're no longer going to be blind bags. So you're no longer going to have to buy countless bags or start going as heavily to try to trade with other folks in order to get complete your collection. So each pack has 4 discs in it, and as far as I know, at this point, there's not really that many. I would have suspected more that would have been announced. So all I know is at launch, and correct me again if I'm wrong, is the Star Wars Twilight of the Republic 4-pack. There's a Tomorrowland 4-pack. Mm-hmm. And then September 29th, along with the Rise Against the Empire playset, there's going to be a Rise Against the Empire Power Disc pack as well. Yep. And then you mentioned the Good Dinosaur pack. Are there any others that you're aware of?
There is also a Zootopia one that they announced at the D23 Expo along with Good Dinosaur. So those 5 are the only ones that I am aware of.
Okay. So then you mentioned that it was announced there. Did you see the physical character of Spot at the expo?
I did, yeah. And I guess that they weren't supposed to have him out on the floor, which I found really bizarre. Because by the time I got to the Infinity booth after the panel, he was there and the place was crowded. People were playing with him. This is a character that I am so excited to get my hands on. He just looks perfect.
Well, I know that they had said, I believe it was John Blackburn that said that he's an extremely powerful character too. Mm-hmm. So what did you see in his gameplay? How did he move? What types of things were you witnessing it?
Well, unfortunately, the only station I could see, I had to take off and catch my flight almost immediately after that panel. So I just ran by the booth, and the only thing I saw was actually him driving in the Toy Box Speedway. So I didn't really get a good look at how he looks in game outside of a car or his actual gameplay.
Okay, all
Sadly
right.
enough.
Oh, that's fair. So then the
Yep.
power discs, you had mentioned that pack. Any additional thoughts or insights on that?
Yeah, so this is kind of interesting to me. I can tell you what they are because they showed this at the announcement. It is going to be characters from the movie. So Arlo's going to be a character or a power disc,
Fantastic.
and then we have the three Tyrannosaurus Rexes. I think Butch, Nash, and Ramsey. Is
Yes,
that correct?
yes, yes.
So we haven't seen any gameplay with these power discs, but it's the only logical conclusion is that all three of these characters would be, or these power discs would be, rideable mounts.
That
Which Arlo
would
makes perfect sense. Butch, Nash, and Ramsey, again, those are assumptions, but I find it weird that there would be nothing but power disc packs that are rideable mounts by characters, but. That's kind of our first guess. They did not have those out on the floor.
okay. Is there any chance that they could be I don't know, like a team up disc or anything?
That was my only other thought that they could possibly be, and that's very possible. The only reason I didn't mention that as a possibility is because if you look at the power disc themselves, the icon of not only the characters of Arlo, Butch, Nash, and Ramsey are on there, but also Spot is there, kind of just his face, and that's indicating to me that they're rideable mounts for him.
Right. Well,
But
plus, I guess if they were the team up discs, those were always circular, and these are still going to be hexagon, correct?
yeah, that's good catch. Yeah,
Yeah, I just thought about that as I was saying it. But yeah, wow. Yeah, hey, I'll take it.
me too.
I'll take it any way I can get it. Good Dinosaur is something that is hotly anticipated, not only because of the delays that the film encountered, but obviously after people have started seeing these trailers and the emotion that they're feeling for these
Yeah.
characters. I certainly cannot wait to get my hands on them. And that's going to be. They didn't give an official release date, did they?
No, they didn't,
Okay.
unfortunately.
One could assume. I'm just going to go out on a limb. I'm not saying that this is correct, but we do know that there are other November 3rd releases.
Hmm.
And I know a lot of times they kind of group them. And the film coming out November 25th, I'm wondering.
That makes sense to me, and that's kind of what I expect based on the film's release. I don't think they would spread out those two waves just to get it closer to the release, and plus it'll be good advertising for the movie itself as
Oh,
well.
absolutely. Yeah, get people excited for it. They could start playing as the character in the game. Um, in addition to those power discs, there is one that you forgot to mention. The King Mickey costume. So explain this. So how do you have your hands on a King Mickey costume disc?
I do. Yep. This was an exclusive that they released at the Disney Infinity, or excuse me, the Disney Interactive panel at D23. So this was kind of this year's version of the first year exclusive, which back then it was Sorcerer Mickey that was slightly modified, different colored stars on his hat. But this is supposedly, I have my own thoughts on this, but this is supposedly it's a costume change disc to make Mickey, the version of Mickey in the Square Enix Kingdom Hearts series, which I'm actually not very familiar with. I've dabbled in it a little bit, but it's a costume change disc for the Mickey that's being released in 3.0. So it's not the Sorcerer Mickey, but the kind of Mickey Clubhouse version.
Okay, all right.
And yeah, they say it's going to be an exclusive. I honestly expect this to come out in some form eventually, and I would not be surprised if I half expect 4.0 to have a Kingdom Hearts focus and to have a King Mickey physical figure. So that's kind of how I think that they're going to skirt that, where technically the Power Disc itself will be exclusive, but eventually everyone will have their or have the ability to get a version of Mickey.
Okay, so that actually makes a ton of sense because obviously they were teasing Star Wars
Hmm.
for a long time, and then now Star Wars is a theme in this one, and then
Right.
now they're doing quite a bit of teasing with this Kingdom Hearts game.
Exactly.
That would certainly make sense to then cross pollinate that franchise as well.
Yep.
Huh.
Yep.
And obviously, the other reason I say that is because from watching your stream at the event, they had also announced the Ultimate Unlock.
Hmm.
Explain what the Ultimate Unlock is, and or like overall, and then what it is for this 3.0 release.
The ultimate unlock is a special unlock in the game. In 1.0, it was a lightsaber, so it was a weapon. In 2.0, it was Luke's land speeder. And you unlock this from unlocking all characters in the game. So when the final wave comes out, you purchase all characters up to this point. You put that last character on the base, you will unlock the ultimate unlock. And in this version, it is the weapon in that Kingdom Hearts series, which is called the Keyblade.
Okay. Yeah, and I saw that they had even a gentleman that
Hmm.
brought that Keyblade out on stage and started showing it off and everything.
Yep, I think that was like the lead developer for the game because Kingdom Hearts had a presence on that panel as well. So it was kind of their introduction of, like you said, Kingdom Hearts for Disney Infinity.
Yeah.
Right now, it's just being teased more or less.
Sure. Yeah. No, I like that rationale that
Hmm.
that it would tie in there. Okay, so I'm also interested in hearing about your experience at that panel. So, what else was announced from there? What, in fact, even before you get to what else was announced from there, going into the panel, what was the vibe in the crowd? Kind of just talk about at the expo what it was like.
So this was my first D23 Expo, and I hate to admit it, but I'm now hooked. I'm already making plans for the next version. It was for any Disney or Pixar fan. It is an experience and kind of one of those once in a lifetime experiences that rarely will you find yourself in a crowd of so many like-minded people that are just there to relish in the fun of this shared interest. And
Absolutely.
it was amazing. My personal favorite event that I actually went to I only got to go to three panels: the animation panel, the Disney Parks panel, and then the Disney Interactive panel. And to be completely honest with you, my favorite panel of all of those was the Disney Animation and Pixar panel.
Ah,
That it was so cool being a part of that, being in that room with John Lasseter up there, getting the crowd pumped up, and finding out all this information about either long rumored movies that are coming
yeah.
out,
Yep.
or even talking about Toy Story 4, and even though they didn't really say too much, just being in the room and hearing like seeing John Lasseter get emotional because that story takes cues from his personal life was just an experience. And then throw on top of that having Randy Newman jump up there.
Yeah, I mean, that's amazing by itself. I mean, you've got
Oh,
an Oscar-winning composer up there that's singing us a live song to you.
and he sounded so good. You know how like there's those singers where you listen to and you think to yourself, I don't know how good this would be live. It sounded just like a mastered recording, listening to a soundtrack. It was so good.
He's already got such a quirky voice. I'm glad that it
Right.
translates just as quirky on stage.
Yeah, and that's why I was kind of surprised, honestly. So, but yeah, D23 was just amazing all around, and that kind of same vibe carried over to the interactive panel. They showed off kind of five, I guess, main things at that panel. The two biggest were the Disney Infinity, of which they closed out the show with, and the Kingdom Hearts game. But the vibe in that room, it seemed like the majority of the people, if not their only reason for being there, equally excited about Disney Infinity because the cheers and just the simple fact that they closed out the show. I was privileged enough to go to a media event the night before that, and I overheard actually the presenters discussing what their expected turnout for that event was. And the hall itself holds, I know you and Julie discussed this on this week's podcast, but the hall itself holds about 8,000, which is up from where they held this panel 2 years ago. And they expected a turnout of about 5,000 people. Well, that room was completely full. So
that certainly shows the interest.
Right. Yeah.
in the not only the other games that they expressed, but then also about Disney Infinity as well. And if they're putting it as like, the final presentation, they know that that's their lead runner.
That and they kind of had the climax of the end at the end of the event was kind of a cue. I saw it as a throwback to how they announced the Marvel edition of the game, and that is, I feel so bad, I always forget their names, but the two leads from The Force Awakens coming out on stage and showing off their characters in game. And this was the first time. The only information we have received about anything Force Awakens is that there's a playset, but that's it.
Right.
And so having them come out and showing their characters and then handing those two characters off, who I can confirm were actually prototype characters. So these characters aren't even being manufactured yet.
Oh, wow.
So handing them out to two fans in the audience was a pretty special moment.
They handed them out.
Yep, they signed their characters, and they found a couple kids in the audience, one of which was dressed up in Darth Vader, and gave those figures out to them.
That's awesome.
That's
awesome. So what other figures were announced there? You had mentioned the Zootopia power discs, but it sounds like they had characters for those two leads as well, of Judy Hopps and Nick Wilde.
Yeah. So they're two characters, as well as they have a power disc pack as well. I don't know what all is in. Well, actually, I do know. There's going to be sky and terrain from that property, as well as a costume change disc for both of those figures.
Okay.
This is something that, after actually going to the animation panel, I had no interest in that movie whatsoever. Seeing a few clips at the animation panel, it made me really excited for that movie. Not as excited as Good Dinosaur, but for not having any interest at all. I think once people see that movie, they're going to be happy to actually have those characters. So
it's interesting. I've heard a lot of people say that leading into Zootopia was not as much of a draw, and I'm kind of in that realm myself right now, where I'm kind of looking at it going, what am I missing? But everybody that's walking out of there is saying, "Oh, you'll get it soon."
And that's the reaction I had. So pleasantly surprised.
Yeah. And then there was one other, as far as that I'm aware of, one other group of figures that they announced, which have the same playable capabilities. They're Star Wars related, but it's the light effects figures. Mm-hmm. And this is super exciting. I don't know why either. Because all it is it's just a light up lightsaber when you place the figure on the base, but it just seems so perfect to have the lightsabers light up. It's like, this should just be the way they're released.
Yeah. Well, and so there's some interesting backstory behind that. I don't know what their original planned release schedule with these characters were, but I do know right up to the point of announcement, they were still trying to figure out the method in which they were going to get the lightsabers lit up. And I personally still don't know what that is. I know when you put them on the base, that's what lights them up. I don't think that light is coming from the lights on the base station. I think it's something is being activated inside. I don't know what that is, though. So
that's really interesting, because I was wondering that too. Because I'm like, if that light has to transfer up all the way through the character and the figure, there's no way it's going to be bright enough to be cool. And the only thing that I could think is it's some type of fiber optics if it's just transferring the light. But then I'm like, no, that doesn't seem like they would do that based on how it looked. It looks like there was some type of connectivity that's firing it up.
Yeah, and which leads me to believe that maybe there's an internal battery, but uh, actually got news today that the those figures are only going to be, I think, $2 more than the standard figures. So,
Oh,
which if they're going to double dip, at least they're doing it while not breaking the bank.
that's fantastic. I really, I'm excited for those.
Yeah,
I mean, when you
it
think
makes
of
sense, like you
Star
said.
Wars, you think of lightsabers,
Hmm.
and they better be lit up.
Yes,
So,
exactly.
and there's no, as far as I'm aware of, they just said holiday, so there's no
Mhm.
official release date or anything.
Yeah, and I hope generally when publishers say holiday, that means pre-Christmas. Technically, it can be after Christmas, but I really hope this means before Christmas.
Yeah, that would be really exciting. I'm excited for that for
It
sure.
doesn't seem like it'd be a perfect ornament to hang on your tree, get that lightsaber lit up, and
Well, you'd have
it's
to have a
just a.
base station there.
That's true.
You hang a base station on your tree.
Oh, just for that one,
Right.
those couple.
Right. So what you could say though is you can use your characters that you got at launch as your Christmas ornaments and then
There
use your
you
new
go.
ones for the base station.
I like it.
Now the
I
one
can
thing
make
that I
it
don't
dual
like,
purpose.
is that if I level up my character without the light up lightsaber, I'm not going to want to level him up again.
That is a great question. I don't think you're going to have to. I think that they are going to. Well, no, I
How
take
could
that back.
they? How could they?
Never mind. I was hoping it would be somewhere along the lines of like, yeah, no, you're right. I think it's going to work like the crystals. They're going to be special
Right.
figures with their own leveling.
Right.
You're right.
Yeah, that's the only downfall
Yeah.
because
Eh,
that's gonna incentivize me to want to hold off a little.
I was going to say by that point you'll have found your perfect spark generator and an XP making machine. So you just plop your figure down, let it run overnight or something.
The cheats that that's a good thing to point out is that
Yeah.
if you're looking for tips and tricks like those, Disney Infinity TV does have those for sure, and they talk about them.
Yeah, might even have a tutorial or two out there.
That
So.
is certainly true. So I think one of the other things that we have been neglecting and need to talk about a little more are the toy boxes themselves.
Yeah.
So we have two unique versions. Obviously, you have the free for all toy box, like we've come to love and expect, but there's also the toy box takeover as well as the toy box speedway. So can you fill me in a little bit about those?
Yeah, so these are two really neat things. Let's discuss the Toy Box Takeover first because this is kind of an iteration of something that existed in 2.0. In 2.0 we had these Toy Box game disc, one of which was Escape from the Kiln, which was a Guardians of the Galaxy uh, focused or themed game, and then we also had, and I always forget. If it's I actually just purchased my Brave and Stitch's Kingdom power disc
Oh,
this
you
week.
just got those.
I just got them, yeah. Only because I didn't like those two game types in the previous game, and I'm like, I
Yeah.
don't want to do it again. But I always miss those assets in the toy box. But anyway, that's
Yes.
besides the
But
point.
yes, there was also the Brave themed one as well, which
Mhm.
frankly I don't remember the name of it off the top of my head either.
Yeah. So one of those was this isometric kind of third person view, and so it's an angled top down view, and it's kind of an action game.
Yep.
And Toy Box Takeover is that, but much better. And my favorite part of this is that it actually has a story, and that story is I just had it up, but Syndrome is causing trouble, and you have to try to travel through these different themed levels of kind of action combat to kind of take down Syndrome and teach him a lesson. So let me
Okay,
see if I
so
can.
that sounds actually a lot better than what it even was in 2.0.
Hmm.
Because those, and what did they call those? The expansion games that they were for. Well, anyways, regardless, they were a letdown for me.
Yeah,
And this sounds like it could get a little bit more interesting again because it has that little bit of that story element to it.
definitely, and that's exactly it. It's the last version was very basic, and in fact, you could actually recreate all of that just in the toy box. This is not quite. It's much more advanced and could only be made by developers. So the gameplay itself is going to be much more interesting.
That's awesome.
So,
And that toy box takeover is going to be $20 if I remember properly. But if you pre-order the game, you get that for free.
yep.
Now I think I had seen that it's like at select retailers. Is it most major retailers, or is there somebody that you're aware of that's a big one that's not including it?
I don't know. So it is most major retailers.
Sure. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's a good
Yep.
way to get it. If not, it comes out a month later.
Yeah, this is something I don't quite understand. They've been kind of cagey about both of these releases. I think they're both going to be released at the same time, separately from that pre-order bonus.
Okay.
But I don't know. I've heard rumors that Toy Box Takeover might actually be available in store this week. So
Very
your mileage
interesting.
may vary on that, unfortunately.
Right.
But this is something that is going to have a story, but it's outside of a playset, which means you can use any of your characters, even if they're from 1.0, to play in kind of this themed, story-driven, toy box specific mode. So it's kind of breaking their rule of keeping all the properties separate. This is, since it's technically in the toy box where that is allowed, they're allowing it. So
Yeah. That's great. So, and then the modes of play on that one, it sounds like there's like obviously the standard single player, there's a 2-player split screen, and then the 4-player co-op online.
yeah.
Assuming that still follows the same trend as before, that you all have to be on the same gaming system.
Yes.
Okay.
Unfortunately, no cross-platform.
Yeah, I was hoping for that one because I'm on Wii U and nobody has Wii U. They're like, oh yeah, TJ, yeah, great.
Hey, at least, interestingly enough, though, never mind. That's a little more nitty gritty. But the Wii U
No,
version,
go for it. What were you gonna say?
it is. They made changes in this version where, oddly enough, they actually can't make as large a toy boxes as they had in 2.0. So the Wii U is on equal footing this time around with the PS4 and the Xbox One version of the game. So
Very interesting.
That's something that's kind of a weird quirk, but interesting nonetheless.
Yeah, no, I like the nitty gritty details too. That's always good. So,
So
the other one, were you going to say anything else about the takeover?
no, it's just it's something I'm really excited about. They has some interesting gameplay mechanics that we haven't really seen yet, but it's going to make it more fun. Would you like me to read the premise of that? I think your listeners might be interested in
Yeah, absolutely.
that story. So, the premise of the Toy Box Takeover and the source of the name, Villain Takeover, is that the Incredible Syndrome gets his hands on an infinity wand, the tool players use to create their own world. Syndrome starts pulling together all sorts of worlds and iconic villains that span Infinity's myriad franchises, including Star Wars, Pixar, and the modern classic Disney. So there's some specific enemies that are also going to be available in that mode and then unlocked in the toy box. But this is going to be a game mode where that farming is going to come into play because you're going to be able to take sidekicks in there. And the stronger your sidekicks are, the more focused gameplay-wise. If you want them to be kind of melee characters or ranged characters, you can kind of plan that out ahead of time to kind of help you get through those levels and make that experience a little bit easier on you.
That's awesome. So you talked about sidekicks a little in there, and I know that they were involved in 2.0. You did mention that they did have some more abilities in 3.0 as well, outside of just costume changes and things like that. But give people a flair for a little bit more background as far as what a sidekick is.
Yeah, so a sidekick they are townspeople. So townspeople are these simplified models in the game that are their characters. So
Yep, if you've played the game, you've seen them. They kind of just like almost like little people just wobbling around, like the little people figures that you can buy for kids in the stores.
Yeah, but now they're customizable, not only just in looks, but I can't remember what are the different things are because I haven't actually played it, but different hats will give them different kind of fighting abilities, or they are actually the ones who do the farming for you. So you can tell your sidekicks to, hey, go farm this plant for me, and then you can harvest it. And depending on what stats you build up for them, will depend on how good they are at farming certain types of foods or certain types of attributes that the foods give you. So it's this weird kind of meta game that is going to make not only sidekicks more interesting and valuable, but also assist in your gameplay.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Huh, kind of cool. All right, so let's talk some Speedway.
Yeah, so Toy Box Speedway is also something that's really, really cool and something new they're doing. One thing they did with Disney Infinity 3.0, and they've done this in past games, but they did it on a much larger scale, is the inclusion of new developers, so people outside of Avalanche software, bringing in people that are focused on mechanics in the game. So in 3.0, combat is much more advanced and engaging, and they got a special developer that is their previous games had that focus, and so they're really good at it. Toy Box Speedway is the same way. It's essentially a kart racer within Disney Infinity, and when I say kart racer, I mean we're referring to the caliber of Mario Kart.
Which I am extremely excited for.
Are you a Mario Kart fan?
Who isn't?
Right? Toy Box Speedway is created by a developer of a kart racing game, and it's actually a Sonic Racing All Stars, which, although it's not Mario Kart, it's generally held in pretty high regard. So the pedigree of that definitely shows through. This game, or this Toy Box game, is a blast to play, TJ. I'm glad to hear that you are a kart racer because you are going to love this.
Okay, so do we have all those fun things where you can learn little shortcuts and
Yep.
bump each other and all these kind of things like you would come to expect?
Bumping, there's different modes that are kind of combat focused. The races themselves are dynamic. So on lap number 2, you might have something that happens in the middle of the course that didn't happen in lap 1, and lap number 3, you might have something else new that happens. So kind of each lap, it just going to, that replayability is going to be there for sure.
That's awesome. And I think I had seen something that there is a Monsters Incorporated with the door scenes.
There is, and it is so cool. I personally haven't played it, but just I've seen it on multiple occasions, and that is so awesome. I talked to one of the developers at the Toy Box Summit actually, and they were talking about this, and it was funny because it was kind of a tough sell for them. They wanted something Pixar, but they didn't know what. They didn't know if they wanted it. Toy Story. Someone mentioned Monsters Inc., and at first they weren't really too jazzed about that idea, but then someone came up with the idea of the door scene, and when you see it in game, it's so perfect. You are in that world, and you're kind of in the Laugh Factory with all the doors, and it's awesome. There's all these rails, which are kind of like the door rails, things holding the doors as they're going across, and so it is just so cool.
Are there any other really neat worlds or tracks that you had seen?
My favorite Disney movie of all time is Nightmare Before Christmas, and that has a really cool racetrack as well. There's a Frozen one. The neat thing about all of these is that they're going to unlock special things in the game. So in the Toy Box, you're going to be able to practically recreate these racetracks. And the thing I'm really excited about is I haven't seen anything Monsters Inc. yet. So I'm like, what are they going to include? Because that just has me drooling to see what we're going to be able to create Monsters Inc.
Yeah,
focus
absolutely.
in the game. I mean, we've had Monsters University from the first game, but not the original. So
right, and we need some more of that.
Yes, absolutely. And I honestly, I don't think they've announced all of the tracks yet. So I'm hoping that we find some more Pixar related tracks in there. So I would love to have I like the Cars playset from the first game, so it would be great to have another Cars focused one, or even a Toy Story one, maybe something along the lines of Andy's Room as opposed to the Toy Story and Space playset. So who knows though?
I think what excites me the most about this is one of the things that I love about all these kart racers is being able to race as the different characters.
Hmm.
And the fact that I can throw a character down from 1.0 all the way to 3.0 and race as that character is probably the most exciting thing for me from the toy box standpoint.
Definitely. And another great thing is that all of those carts are available. If you want to race as Lightning McQueen, you can use him. If you want to race as, I don't know, let's say Wreck-It Ralph in the parking lot tram, that's going to be an equally viable cart to get you around the track. So,
And those carts are available. You don't have to have, like, for instance, like that parking lot tram was a power disc in the last version. You don't have to have that to unlock the cart, correct?
unfortunately, I think you are going to. There are a lot of vehicles that are just going to be unlocked in the game that you can use. An example of a new, fun, exciting one is the teacups from the teacup ride. But I think for those traditional vehicles that were power disc in the previous games, you are going to need those power disc. I could be wrong on that, but I think that's what it
Oh,
is.
this is going to make me want to. I have a few stragglers I need to finish up in my 2.0 power disc collection. Dang it.
Yeah, sorry to bear bad news.
No. It's exciting at the same time.
Yeah.
All right, so obviously lots of good Toy Box news. Let's talk about the Toy Box Summit, because that was another event that you were at, which was just before the D23 Expo. Mm-hmm. So what is the Toy Box Summit? How does it get kicked off every year? Who's invited? All these kind of fun things.
So the Toy Box Something, this was the second year that that Disney Infinity has done this, and it's kind of just it's a celebration of the community, and it's focused though around Toy Box Artist, which Toy Box Artist is kind of the name coined for the each week Disney Infinity has a Toy Box building challenge. And Toy Box Artists are anyone who participates in that or wins one of those challenges. And I think this year you had to have won a minimum of 10 different challenges. And did I say 10?
Yes.
I meant 7. Sorry.
You're fine.
That name came from. But yeah, so any of the artists that were there had won 7 of those challenges, and they are invited to this event, which is kind of a combination of, I don't know, a community celebration because they live stream the entire event. They have developer panels, they have presentations, but they also include a Toy Box challenge. And this year they had the artists team up and recreate their versions of planets from the Star Tours ride. And then, so that's kind of a competition between all of the artists. And the winners, there's a couple different prizes. One is there's a judges prize, and that is the team that wins that gets kind of everything out at launch. So that's a pretty great prize. Everyone got something, so I think everyone were happy about that. But then there's also something called a community prize, and this is something they surprised people with last year. Not only that, the prize itself last year came out during the summit. It was one of the artists came up with this idea. It was like, hey, whoever's the winner, why don't you make them as a character in the game?
Oh,
and
I know.
I think that's about the ultimate for anyone who's a huge fan of this game.
That is beyond the ultimate. Yeah, and the first year was Lauren, who won, and they revealed her figure at this event, didn't they?
They did, yeah. Yep.
I shouldn't say figure, the character. It's not like they produced a playable figure, but
it's a town person. Unfortunately, she's not a sidekick either, so she's just one of those a town people that you can just put down in your game. But
who cares? That's amazing.
Right.
It's so cool.
Yeah. So we expect them to announce that winner this week. I think either via Toy Box TV or Toy Box TV Live. And since they did it as teams this year, the winning team, all of them would get a character in the game.
Oh, that's so awesome.
So, and one other new thing I think was probably the biggest news that came out of the event of the summit this year is that they have started essentially a Toy Box Council, and all of the artists that were invited to the summit are a part of this council, and so over the next year they will be making decisions to help shape future versions of the game. The first decision of which they actually got to make as soon as the summit was over. They got locked into a room and they got to pick any character that they wanted to be an up and coming character and what actually is going to be 3.0, so not even 4.0. So in this version of the game.
Oh, it's going to be in this version.
Yeah, yeah.
I thought for some reason it was going to be the next one.
Okay, so at first they said it was going to be 4.0, and then via social media after the fact they said 3.0. So
Okay, so that's where I must have, because when I was watching some of the stream, I was like, "This is awesome."
yeah, yep. And
And then I was disappointed that I had to wait a full release.
I know,
But now
right?
I don't. But now I don't.
Well, as long as they can produce the hardest part, I would imagine, is the actual physical figure creation and that whole thing. So as long as they can get that done in time, I'm sure programming it in game won't be too difficult, especially with the character they chose. There's similar type characters that already exist in the game. So
And they had done some, I guess. Well, we should probably say who it was. So who did they end up picking?
So they picked a classic Disney character and they chose Peter Pan.
Yeah, which is, I mean, first off, any flight character, any character that can fly is by far one of my favorites.
Yep.
Because getting around the toy boxes, especially when you're near the end, whether that be toy boxes or the play sets, when you're near the end of them and you have a couple straggling little missions that you have to complete, getting from one side of that toy box to the other, that flying character is gold.
Yes. Yeah. That is another pro tip. I actually learned that from some of the devs. They're like, whatever you do, just use a flying character. And I've adhered to that ever since.
Oh yeah, without a doubt, without a doubt. So that's really exciting that they got to kind of shape the game like this.
Mm-hmm.
Not, I mean, I don't know of any other game that's this interactive with the fans.
You know, I'm a big gamer and I feel the same way. There's similar player councils like this, but not to the degree that Disney Infinity has interacted with their community and their player base, and it's pretty amazing thing to witness.
Yeah, I know when Pirate Steven, who is a frequenter on your show, he mentioned that he said thank you to the Disney Infinity team for making him feel like he was treated like royalty.
Yeah, and they totally did. They spared no expense for these artists. They had them the first couple days during the summit and before the expo. They had them staying at the Grand Californian. The summit itself was held at California Adventures, so it was really convenient. They moved them for D23 to put them right next to the convention center to make that convenient for them. So
wow.
It's amazing. It's just VIP treatment the first night at Disneyland Park, a private dinner, VIP seating for the parade and fireworks for the 60th anniversary, as well as a tour of Walt's apartment, which is something that is a very special treat for people.
Wow. So anybody listening that wants to be involved in this, definitely pay attention to DisneyInfinity.tv and pay attention to their tips and tricks and start building toy boxes if you're already not. And heck, you could be one of the people that's invited out.
Absolutely, yeah. It really is open to anyone. So I encourage anyone that's interested to give a crack at it. It's the worst thing that will happen is you'll have fun building in the game.
Yeah, I mean, and then you just get more, you get more ingrained into the game, and then you start playing. I mean, across the board, it can't hurt, and it can only lead to more fun.
Yep. Hopefully, some of that fun is a trip on Disney.
Yeah, exactly. So, anything else from the Toy Box Summit that you wanted to highlight?
The only thing I'll mention. So I was lucky enough to go last year, and last year I was the only Disney Infinity focused media outlet there. They had some other media that was more general. This year they had more community leaders in the Disney Infinity space, and the thing I noticed, not only from my perspective as media, but just also the community as being an observer, is that the environment was just so much more welcoming and cohesive. The community was all there just to relish in the the event and to help each other out, and even the media. I mean, I'm sure you know that sometimes that's not always the case, and it was just kind of a breath of fresh air that everyone was just so positive and excited to be there this year. And even though it's a competition, it's all kind of in good fun for the toy box artists themselves.
That's great. That's great. That's the whole thing surrounding the community, and that's truly what it is for this game, is definitely unlike many others, for sure.
Yeah.
Awesome. So as I think about wrapping up about the Disney Infinity 3.0 launch, one of the other things I wanted to talk about, just because I had read something about it, and it was one of my favorite additions to 2.0, just because it allowed the characters to have some variability, was the skill trees. And I had heard that they're going to be redesigned yet again. I shouldn't say yet again, because before they just added them in. But it sounds like they're redesigning them this time to give them a little bit more oomph. So how is that changing?
So it's changing in a few ways. The probably most noticeable is that they're a lot less complicated.
Okay.
So before, you had one screen that had kind of a spider web of abilities that you had to choose from. And I would say that the unlockable abilities are the same in number in this one, but they're kind of segmented in areas. So force powers might be a categorization, melee combat, maneuverability. So if you want to focus on being able to jump higher or go faster, you can go to that tab and unlock stuff. If you want to have a more powerful Jedi, you could go there and unlock more force abilities. So that's probably the most immediately apparent change, is just the ease of use of that understanding is a lot better this time. But then, the abilities themselves are a lot more varied and specific to the characters themselves. So something we mentioned on this episode, and that I talk about frequently, is that these characters, although physically they're different and in-game they look different, they're not always that different when you play them. This 3.0 is so much more varied in that respect, in that you're getting a lot more value per character that's going to give you something different, regardless if it's a similar type of character than any of the previous games were. And that goes for one thing I forgot to mention, the Pixar characters. So even though the playset itself is a more or less a 2D side scroller, in the toy box, they're going to act just like any other character. So they're going to be three-dimensional, and if you're used to playing as Mickey Mouse in the toy box, you plop down Joy. She's going to act similarly with her own powers, which kind of, to me, provides even an additional level of value for those characters, because you have kind of two gameplay modes. You have the 2D platformer and then the toy box version. So all characters are much more upgradable this time around.
All right, well, there you go. Hopefully you enjoyed our special episode with Will Kelly from DisneyInfinity.tv to learn a little bit more about Disney Infinity 3.0 and the upcoming release. So now we want to know from you, what are you most excited about for Disney Infinity 3.0, and what is the first character and playset that you're planning to buy when this is released? Leave a comment on our post, send us an email, info@pixarpost.com, or just interact with us on any of our social media channels. Well, we certainly hope you enjoyed this special episode of the Pixar Post podcast, and be sure to follow us on all of our social media channels, whether that be Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Periscope, Pinterest, Tumblr, YouTube, Google+, and then feel free to subscribe to our podcast on iTunes, Overcast, or Stitcher. And lastly, if you like today's show, let us know. Rate us on iTunes, leave a comment on our site, or send us an email, again, like I mentioned, info@pixarpost.com. Well, signing off as usual, I'm TJ, and be sure to stay tuned to pixarpost.com all week for the latest Pixar news. Bye-bye.